What's up, guys?
Hey, Ken. How are you? Mixing it up this morning.
We're mixing it up.
Our world is going crazy.
Giving Bob an episode off for the intro.
There you go.
Yeah. That's awesome. You did a good job, by the way, because you have that. You have that fancy mic that we don't have.
Yeah, you have a radio voice.
Yes, it's the mic. It's all the mic.
It's all in the mic. We don't have the New York thing going on.
Oh man, I've gotten rid of that accent a little bit.
No, you haven't.
Depends on when you get me.
So we are in the midst of, we're pushing this episode up. We usually record one or two ahead, but we jumped them so that you're going to hear this one pretty fresh. Coronavirus.
Man,
what is that?
Coronavirus.
I haven't heard about that.
haven't heard about it.
It's crazy. And as you guys know, I wrote an article the other day about it. I see it as a disruption. We talk a lot about disruption, right? Like we think we're disruptive as agencies. We think we love to look at disruptors. It's a buzzword in our business. But disruption is coming from the outside that we have no control over this time, right? It's not Facebook being disruptive or Apple being disruptive. It's
the original disruptor.
It's the universe being disruptive in some way, right? So we all have friends in this business that are being affected. Maybe today we can talk about how, maybe how each of you or each of us is being affected by it, by our clients that are being affected by it.
Specifically on the business side. So there's a lot of editorial and stuff like that around life getting disrupted. But I think today our goal is to talk about, and really, we're really just thinking through how does this affect business? How do certain businesses survive through it? How do our businesses adapt? And what are we seeing happening? And ultimately, anytime you're disrupted by anything, it's hard, but it causes you to adapt, and that ultimately is a good thing. And so how are we doing that?
Yeah, how are we learning from this? This is a huge lesson that we are being given, whether we like it or not.
Is this a gift? Is that what you're saying?
I think it is.
Maybe.
I mean,
the obstacles.
We talked about the Enneagram. So as an Enneagram 7, that's the only way I see the world. But I know that there's the reality of people dying and pain, and there's a lot of negative things that go along with it. But we were talking over coffee. It's interesting, this idea of depending on where you stand on origins of species and evolution and survival of the fittest, there's a shakeout that's taking place and will take place in the business world and in the culture. When this is all said and done, I think we'll look back and say, wow, coronavirus was the end of, and fill in the blank. And those are some things maybe that we can learn from this and maybe adapt to as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you, so I know the way I was looking at it, I was thinking about it the last couple of days. There are some businesses that are clearly in pain from the coronavirus effect, from the effect of people not being able to even congregate in certain places with more than a certain group of people. Those being like live events. We live in Nashville, so tours and musicians and all those kind of things are getting affected. I've heard a lot from people that own storefronts and restaurants and those kind of things, and obviously they're being affected. Tourism, hotels, all that kind of stuff. But in our world, the agency world, we often operate in the digital world, but our clients, maybe clients that don't, right? Yeah. That's kind of what we're doing. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about how we as agency owners, our perspective on helping businesses that are being affected. That's maybe one area. And then the other area might be interesting is, are we being affected right now? And at first, let's give you my 2 cents real quick. At first, I was sort of not very aware of it, and I wouldn't say that there's a specific effect that's happening right now, but I do think overall our society is distracted a bit, and so that will create an effect for every business, of course, every person, and everything is affected by that. So if you're thinking, "Oh, I'm good, I'm not affected by this," I think that's probably very naive. But it would be an easy thing to to believe, because you might think I do digital stuff, I'm not going to be affected. I already work from wherever, or my team is already remote or whatever. That's probably a naive perspective. And so we always say in the business world, we always say that we're in the business we're in, and the business we're going into, right? That's innovation. And so we have to be seeing ahead. And so if we're not looking ahead, that's probably very naive and unwise. And so today we want to sort of look ahead to that. And so I don't know what you guys are thinking. Like, how are you seeing effects, Brad, for your clients, for your business?
I think within the next week or two, I'll start seeing some immediate effects. They could be positive or negative. Most of what I see is our clients really scrambling. And I feel for my business right now, it's almost at a day-to-day. You have to look at everything from a day-to-day perspective. But then I'm thinking, I'm kind of that person who thinks months ahead. And I'm thinking, okay, how is this going to affect our clients in their business model down the road? Like right now, our clients are scrambling to try to make some changes. And you can feel that when you talk to them. But at the same time, you know that they're really trying to make sure that their future business is able to survive, right? And if their business isn't able to survive, or if they have to make tons of financial cuts, that is going to also affect our business down the road. Yes. So I'm looking at like their business processes and go, okay, what time of the year are their revenues the strongest, and is this going to hurt that period of time or the work that we have forecasted for them down the road? And what if I play a lot of scenarios in my head of what ifs. What if they don't do that? What does that mean for them? And then what does that mean for us as this to help support them? I can't imagine agencies who solely work in the event space, right? Right now, they're probably scrambling like crazy because their core, like what you said, Bob, what if an agency survives off 4 big events that they do a year for a client, right? And those events are starting to be canceled. Who's a lot of folks have money. Businesses already have money invested in things, right, and they're waiting for checks to come in, for things that they've already done. And I'm assuming that clients, may hold back and start to hold back some accounts payable just because they're trying to weather the storm. They don't know if this is very short term, meaning only weeks or a month, or if this is going to last for a full quarter or 2 quarters, right, of the year. So they don't know what to expect. Everybody seems to be on a day-by-day basis. And it's really hard to manage a business when you don't know what tomorrow may look like, right? And we're all planners, right? We can only change our future. It's hard to change just today or tomorrow. There's not enough lead time to make much impact. So I think, business owners, especially agencies, are probably right now scrambling as well, like we are a little bit, going, how does this affect your business? And some agencies are affected more by it because the type of business that they do, and some are maybe a little bit less. So it's, for us right now, it's really a challenging time for clarity. I said in one of the other podcasts that my word this year is clarity. And
that's being challenged.
And that's being heavily challenged for me right now because I don't have any clarity and I just have to be reactive. I don't like being reactive. I like to be proactive. And there is a level of, you just have to trust, right? That humans are going to figure this out.
Right.
And
we're going to be okay.
We're going to be okay. And if you really look at it, part of my brain comes at it from a real rational side. And I look at it and go, okay, if we can just get over this next couple of weeks, we don't have these huge spikes where we're sending tons of people to the hospitals and the hospital systems are overloaded, we could easily survive this, we have people that we know personally who are going through this struggle with the virus, and though it does affect people and it's causing some deaths in the United States, most of the people who are getting it seem like a really bad flu. And so I know personally, like we were talking about this, I personally don't fear, like if I get it, that I'm in jeopardy. I feel like I can weather that storm, but I don't want to pass it on to somebody else.
I don't fear for my life.
I don't fear for my life, but I fear that I could pass it on to somebody else. And so I understand the fear. I understand that how this is affecting our businesses, and especially when large groups of people get together. But it's it's hard to see this, right? And it's also hard to know that, like, I have friends that are in the event business, and they're just getting hammered right now. It's real time hammering right now. I believe that some agencies are in that space, but I think that a lot of what this will cause is it's going to cause a quarter down the road. So like next quarter, right, when reports come out, everyone's going to be hammered. Now, whether or not the stock market and everybody's reacted to that right now, the stock market obviously tanked yesterday. Are we tanking everything right now and then going to be okay, expecting that businesses are not going to report great earnings next quarter? Right. We're already going to know that. So if there is some decent return reports on earnings, is that going to be like, is everybody going to be joyful and positive and everybody's going to feel healthy financially? I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah. It's an interesting time because we don't know. I think what you touched on a point is, in business, you want to have some sort of like the lay of the land and have clarity, right?
Yeah.
But right now with this, we don't know from day to day. So it's hard and it's next to impossible to like plan or strategize.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to talk about. Go ahead.
And I feel like if you could take the financial crash of 2008, 2009 and mix that with Y2K, the fear of Y2K, put those into a little,
add some bird flu in there.
Add some bird flu in there. Yeah, some swine flu and other things in there. And you got this perfect storm. And
I was in the tech industry in Y2K. I'm older than both of you guys. And during that time, there was some crazy stuff going on. Late 90s, it was a crazy time because what was happening was the whole client server conversion from old legacy systems. The internet was taking off. Things like JavaScript were replacing certain types of code. A lot of things were evolving, and there was two things that were going on in Y2K simultaneously. There was the real scare, and there was the fake scare.
Yeah,
and I think it's kind of like today. Like there's a real concern.
Yep.
Like we can't deny it anymore that this is a real thing, and that people are dying by the hundreds, if not thousands, in other countries, and that will probably happen here to some degree. So that's a real concern. We have to stop that. We don't want people to die. The other thing is there's a fake concern that people are stockpiling and toilet paper, which I still don't understand what that's about, and people are profiting off fear. There's people that are being arrested for claiming they have coronavirus cure. If you take this, this all that kind of stuff. So what I learned in Y2K, and I've always taken it with me, is we worked really hard to change those computer systems and change the code to get those 2 digits fixed, because it really could cause some issues. But it wasn't as bad as people were saying. Planes weren't going to fall from the sky, and people weren't going to get stuck in elevators, and the world was not going to come to an end. But as you walk through that middle ground to try to parse what is real and what is not, how do you live above it all? And that's, I think, what we want to talk about. It's like, how do I learn from this as a business? How do I survive? And how do I not just follow the herd? So how can I deal with reality, deal with what I should be doing, do the practical things like we've talked about a couple episodes back about, managing your finances correctly, the things that you guys do fantastic. But the other side of the coin is I was telling you guys the Ford versus Ferrari. If you haven't watched that film from a business perspective, everybody should watch it. It's in the, it's early mid 60s, Detroit, booming car industry. Brad, this is your neck of the woods.
I'm from the D, so yeah. Detroit, so it's close to my heart.
So opening scene, Henry Ford II, his grandson, comes out and says, shuts down the line and says to everybody, every single one of you, you better come to my office and give me a good idea of why our butts are getting kicked by Chevy. And if you can't do that, then don't come in tomorrow. And basically, this is the era of the Ford Fairlanes and all these just okay, mediocre cars. This was before the Mustang and everything else. And then you have this guy named Carroll Shelby who comes along, who's creating these muscle car, race cars, innovation in his little shop in California. Mm-hmm. And millionaires are coming and buying them for hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it was at the time. And he's just like, he's got his cottage industry and he's playing in a different universe. He's not on anyone's radar as far as a car industry leader. However, if you wanted to be cool and you were Robert Redford or whoever at the time, you had a Shelby Cobra. And even to this day, a real Shelby Cobra is worth how much?
Wow, I don't know.
Like $1 million if you had one. Anyway, all of that.
Watch the car auctions, you'll see them.
All of that to say is when Ford wanted to win 24 Hours of Le Mans, they went to Carroll Shelby to develop something that everyone said that would take decades to catch up to Ferrari. And he's like, no, give me 90 days, I'll do it. Not only did he do it, but he won, 5-6 years of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the only time American car has ever done that. So all of that to say, as we look at this, how can we be the Carroll Shelbys in the midst of, the auto industry just struggling in the midst of that?
I think, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. First, I think it's important to accept it, which can be hard from a societal standpoint, as a business owner. Just accept that your business is going to change. Maybe it's not even now, but it will always change. Life will always change. And to something you said, Brad, earlier about having clarity, you probably would. I think you would agree with this, if not disagree with me. But it's almost more like you as the leader have to create clarity for yourself and your team. Now, that's not having a God complex or anything like that. It's just about that's kind of what a leader does, I believe, and that's what you're doing, and that's probably what you meant. But I do think there's a difference there, right? You're never going to just have clarity. Like, that's probably never going to exist. And I think, I came to the conclusion on this particular topic a few years ago that the longer you refuse to accept that reality, the longer you'll just live your life in disappointment.
That's good.
Because you'll never have it. You're never going to. I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I'm the type of person that will persist. I will, I saw I think it was Will Smith once, he said, I'll die on the treadmill. Like, you'll never beat me. Like, I'm a little bit like that, like I will persist through pain. And I have a tolerance that probably is greater than a lot of people that I've met. That's not always a good thing, because what that causes for me is, like, I do that because I'm like, there's this pot of gold, there's this thing, the goal that I'm going to get to. Once I get there, I can be happy. And that is that I realized through a lot of different methods that obviously that's not the case, right? Like, life, if you wait to be happy until things are great, you will never be happy. And so you have to be happy and have, really, happiness is maybe not the right word, but you have to have joy and fulfillment in the journey. Sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Turns out a lot of cliches are true. And so I think as number one, like, as people, we have to accept, and as business owners, we have to accept it. We have to accept that, this is, now for some people it's not that hard, right? Like, they're in the reality of their business being clearly, specifically disrupted right now. But for others, it's like, maybe this is just going to pass, or it's not going to be a big deal, or maybe you're freaking out or whatever, but somehow you have to accept where you're at and that you need to change. This is ultimately a good thing. And then I think second to that, once you accept it, I believe you have to create a plan forward.
Yeah.
And that's where, and that honestly takes, I believe, a lot of creative thinking and belief on what you're doing. I think a lot of people get stuck in, I coach a lot of businesses, and we do, especially in some of our businesses are very old, right? Traditional brands that have been around forever that are trying to adapt to, because they're being disrupted by someone doing something in e-commerce or something like that. We do a lot of that. The biggest challenge a lot of times is cracking through the mindset that, this is just how it works. We can't change.
Right.
Like, and if you're in that mindset, then you're probably going to be disrupted by this, and you will not get out of it until you change that mindset. And so you have to be somehow accept it, and then energized by the fact that, hey, we have to innovate now. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I say a lot of his stuff and all that kind of stuff, but he often says that, hey, you're in the business now. You're in two businesses, the one you're in now and the one that you're going into, right? And that's innovation, and you have to run two different businesses. And so this is innovation, is figuring out like what is next. And I'll make one other point that came to my mind. Again, I think it's a Tony thing, but it's really valid here. I don't even think it's just him. Like, a lot of people say this, but real success, real. A lot of people say real wealth, but a lot of other things, a lot of good things come in winter.
Yeah,
and.
Yes.
This is a winter, like, and even you talk about the stock market, someone put this to me like this a couple years ago, and it was like a light bulb that went off. It's like, when the stock market goes down, when Target has a clearance sale, like, everyone's running to Target, to get clearance items. At least I know my wife does. I don't know if all you guys do, but like when other people have sales, we buy stuff. Mm-hmm. When does the stock market ever have a sale?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
now is a sale. Right? Buy it, do it smart and all that kind of stuff, but it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Winter is when, all the, there's going to be a shedding of things. Right. And so in the business world, that means certain businesses that may have been living easy and living off the cream of the crop, they're going to shed and die away potentially. And so that means there's new opportunity. So I'll shut up a little bit and let you guys talk about what you think about that. But I think those two first steps are important, like accepting it and then actually somehow being energized by it and being of the mindset that, hey, this is a good thing. I may not know what I have to do just yet, but I know that we have to figure this out. And if we figure that out, then we're in a better place than we were before. And one last thing I'll say is, like, people get caught up in how it's going to happen. The Carroll Shelby story is a great example. You had mentioned that the guys on Ford's team had said, hey, this will take years to do. That's because they were caught up in how we're going to do it.
Right.
How doesn't matter. You got to do it.
Right.
Like, it's like, okay, cool, but this has to be done in 90 days.
Right.
Like, for them, I don't know I don't know how important it was, but like, even like now, like, you have coronavirus, okay, like, there's a lot of, if we all just sat back and we're contained by all the how that we know, then we wouldn't be able to adapt as people and actually stop things. We could never, it could be, at the end of the day, we need to stop this thing in some way. Mm-hmm. How doesn't matter, right? Like, we got to figure it out.
Yeah,
if you start with how, then you're automatically in a box, and you will never actually be able to attempt that achievement of that thing.
I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit that as humans, we can figure things out pretty quickly if we need to, right? It's the matter of like time, right? 3 months, right? 3 months for the Carroll Shelby thing, like, that's impossible. He probably wasn't worried about the 3 months. He was just focused on the end result.
Right.
And they always say that the time in work, you work to the amount of time you're given. And, we all know that we're all smart. We're all capable. Humans are very capable of doing a lot. So if you put yourself and you look at history and you look at adversity that we've as humans have come across even in the last 100 years with wars and other things, we get over things pretty quickly and we move on. And we've always seen this idea of everything that we've done in life. If you look at the 2008, 2009 financial crash, we've had this since then. Our economy's had the strongest economy in years, and so we tend to take these events as like a renewal, right?
Yes.
And we're much stronger afterwards. And there's positives, but the reality is you almost have to go through quite a bit of those through your life to actually go through them to know that's kind of what happens. And so for people who are younger, who have an agency, who are starting businesses, have never gone through too much struggle, I just want to give everyone confidence that we'll all get over this.
Yes.
And we'll probably look back at this time as a blip in time, but we will be much better. You will be much better as a business owner, as someone who's running a business, because you have learned. Every time I've gone through adversity, I've always become sharper and better, but I've had to be sharpened. And sometimes that sharpening is painful. Nobody likes pain. Nobody likes to go through these things, but it will help you. It will serve you your rest of your life, and it will be better you'll be better than what you are now because of it. And again, I think that this will be a blip in time for us. Hopefully, there'll be other things in our world 10 years from now that might be worse.
Yes.
And this will prepare us for that time as well. So we are being prepared. We are being sharpened. We are showing who we are as humans and humanity, right? We are allowed now to have compassion for people.
Yes.
And that's what life's about. That's what gives us our energy to go, we believe in people. We believe in our friends. We believe in the ones we love. We believe in everything. And what's really important in life, is it just our businesses? Is it just the bottom line? Is it just our financial viability, or is there more than this in life? And so it helps us all to kind of reflect on this time and go, what do we really want in our lives and our business? So maybe this is a good time for us to reflect on that, and go, what are we really about, and what are we really doing? Why are we doing our business?
Yes.
And so, again, all of this stuff is hard, and I'm not saying it's not hard, and there might be harder times in the future. In the next year, things could be hard for the next year, but I just want to give everyone confidence. We're all in this together.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just want to say to add to that, Brad, to your awesome point there, is that for those that are listening, you're not alone, and you probably, depending on where you are on the spectrum of your business or what you're going through with your family, is, you're not alone, and that there are people who are going through the same thing. And like you said, this winter, this dark night of the soul, that as a species that we may be going through, there's always a morning. There's always a spring. And what happens many times, if we were not to have winter in the world, say for instance, there was no shedding of leaves and an organism just continued to grow new things, new cells, new leaves, we call that cancer. Yep. And that's the beauty of winter. There's only things that can be done in winter that cannot be done any time else. There's only things that can be done in the night and in the dark that can't be done anywhere else. We see this in migrations of species. We see this in all kinds of stuff. So not to try to put a shiny shell on what's happening with coronavirus, but I do think we need to talk about some practical things now moving forward for the last half of the show of how can businesses survive, first of all. So let's talk about how do we survive, and then let's talk about how to thrive. Mm-hmm. So first of all is what are some real practical things that you guys have done or are doing or you think you're gonna do in the next few weeks just to survive?
I've been thinking about this over the last week or so. And so this is sort of just like stream of consciousness a little bit, and I'm not sure about every single thing, but I think number one, as a commentary, I think I've sort of observed some other businesses acting, and you guys, and I'm sure everyone here and listening has, like, it's been cool to see businesses that can help other businesses that are in pain right now, doing that. And I'll tell you, that's a really careful line though, because if you do that with any disingenuine or heart or message or anything like that, you're not only bad, but like you'll like people will find out and it won't be good for you. So don't do that. I mean, but if you have a genuine product, if you have a product that can genuinely help people through this, I've seen that, and that's kind of cool. It's caused me to think about us. So I have like the first category of what I think we're doing is, well, number one, we've been doing our best. We talk about this a lot about being prepared, and you can't prepare for everything, but the act of being aware of needing to prepare is important enough. And so some of those steps are allowing us to have a foundation if depending on where things go and that kind of thing, and that's good. That doesn't necessarily mean financial. That means structurally, and we can work remote if we need to, because we have organization, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, tools in place,
processes, and those kind of things, and those are really important. I was thinking about and I'm sorry I'm on a tangent, but giant corporations or whether or not, but fairly big workforces that are traditional in the sense that they work from the same place all the time and have never had to create the systems and processes required to work remote. Now, like, they're having to do that. So that's important.
Yeah. So on a very basic, and this may sound really basic to us, but what's the one or two tools that any business owner
that's good.
Can use right now to get their workforce working from home and productive?
This is probably nothing no one knows, but we use our suite of tools. We use Basecamp primarily for our project management and communication. It's simple enough that people use it, and that to me is the requirement. With a more complex, may have more features, but people can't use it as well. People can't find things as well. So we use Basecamp to collect all communication between clients and internal staff and tasks and those kind of things.
Do you want to give our listeners a promo code?
Yeah.
I'm joking. No, we're not.
We're
not promoting any specific software, but we actually, I'm gonna chime in there. We actually do use Basecamp. We've been using it for years, and there just doesn't seem to be anything that is really. We use it specifically for our client communication as a repository to hold all the communication and files and things. And there's other software, but internally we use.
Just so easy.
We use Sauna, and we've been using Slack for a few years now. And
so Slack
is really our main communication internally. Email's broken. I hate email. And so Slack is definitely that. And our agency is super virtual. I mean, I'll get together. We've been coming to the office, but I've been telling all of our employees, if you don't feel comfortable, if you want to stay home, work from home. It's not a big deal. We're gonna, we can work perfectly from home. You can put a full day's work in, and we're all virtual. We all have laptops typically. We're not bound to like big computers or super locked down that we can only use in an office.
You don't have your big desktop computer that anymore.
I don't know, but we do have a lot of monitors, extra monitors.
I think these three tools. Any business can do 99% of their business. It's Slack, Basecamp, and Zoom,
and Dropbox.
And Zoom, yeah,
and Zoom.
we use
and Dropbox.
We use
for your big
GoToMeeting
files.
and Zoom.
Yeah, so those are just simple tools that you can install within 15, 20 minutes and be up and running with the whole team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, those and you have to have the rules to use them, right? So like if you just use them chaotically, then they don't really work that well, but we've got some sort of ways that we use them. For instance, all of our, we call throwaway communication is in Slack. Anything that needs to be documented on projects and things has to be in Basecamp.
And I'm probably like you guys too, is that a lot of our clients are out of state. So we're constantly doing GoToMeetings with them. So it feels natural. We're not like doing a new process right now with our clients even that seem out of the ordinary just for the specific purpose. So for us, everything is status quo as far as that's concerned. I think as far as what we're doing in our own business to prepare is, just really being very thoughtful on, accounts payable, accounts receivable, just being really prepared if things slow down in that area, specifically with our clients. They're probably going to be very careful about who they pay, and they may actually not be paying on time in the future, just to be able to survive through a portion of that. So just being really thoughtful financially of where we are. Not, I think like every business, whether or not you're an agency or not, you're deciding on your next step and what you're going to invest in. There might be things on your project plate that you're like, we could probably hold off by doing that right now, just because we don't know what we'll need. So you start prioritizing things in your business. And then, I haven't done this yet, but we talked about this is we haven't right now. We've been kind of in the last week in kind of survival mode, trying to just understand the what's going to happen and it's day by day. But we haven't actually looked at how do we leverage this time, right? And how do we kind of, in some way, not take advantage of it, but how do we leverage this time as an opportunity for our business? So we're not just looking at how to survive, but actually how to even thrive better in the future because of it, right? We haven't done that yet. And I feel like that's something that I think if we can be intentional about that, there might be some very positive things that come out of this right now.
Yeah, well, let's shift then and let's talk about thriving. I mean, we talked about a couple of practical ways, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about.
No, I'll just say one great resource is the founders of Basecamp are big on remote work. I think their whole organization is remote, or a lot of it. And so they've got a ton of resources on how to do that really well. Our audience may know of those already, but I think, but there's a book by the founder and there's a few other things, but like even your clients may find it, like our audience's clients may find it really useful. I know we've sent it out to a few people. So
yeah, that's good. So thriving in what this is going to do is it'll shake the tree of the dead leaves. And, one of the things I've been thinking about the last couple of days is to observe. And I think that's the first thing, is observe. And I think the disruption of certain types of industries, you think of live events. You mentioned that, Brad. You think of education. Any place where massive amounts of people meet regularly in one space are being disrupted. You and I we have a bit of a disdain for trade shows. I've never liked them. No. I think there's a huge waste of money and time, and that could be a thing of the past and cut back considerably going in the future because of this. I think the first thing is observe and look and see what are the industries and businesses and situations that are going to be hit the hardest, and say, for me, the way I look at it is, which one of those are probably going to go away and go the route of other dead things that are no longer around, businesses, products, etc. And am I involved as a business owner or as a business person in any of those? Do I need to get out of them? Do I need to change?
Do I rely on them?
And the second thing is, as those businesses evolve and get better through this, what can I learn as well? So those are just a simple way that I think we have to look at it and change our thinking patterns of how do we analyze this situation. Yeah. So what do you guys think? What are you thinking at this point, or looking at, or trying to how are you trying to thrive through this?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that if I follow some of that, and it was only 3 points, but I can't remember them. But I know the first one is observe. But like as I observe our landscape, or that landscape, I would imagine here's how I think, and I think this has to be done with the right intention. And so, but as an agency, your job has been to help businesses innovate, probably using technology. If you're an agency not using technology and digital means those kind of things, and you're probably, I don't know, you're probably a rare beast, and if you still exist, awesome. But you're probably using technology, right? So like, who better to help businesses adapt to a changing landscape where maybe you can't congregate right now, or maybe you can't do business in person? Who better to do that than you? So in theory, again, you can't you have to do this with care, right? You shouldn't be excited about the coronavirus helping your business. But I think that as you look at how do you best serve these people, I think who better to serve than our businesses? And so you should be able to thrive through it, I think. That being said, we've been sort of thinking about how do we offer help in genuine ways to businesses that are actually affected. Now we do e-commerce, right? And so we're considering, well, if you're a retail business or you're a business that's in person and you're actually struggling through this, like we'll provide some level of support for free for a period of time or something like that. We're grappling with that. I don't know.
So those businesses that haven't delved deep into e-commerce just because they've always been like the corner store or whatever they may be, or they have a chain that's all in person. Now's the time for you to step up and provide a solution for them to say, hey, you don't have to close down and lay off everybody. Yeah. What if you did this online?
And chances are, chances are those people are not, this is not brand new to them, but they may still, those businesses that really struggle probably still relying on that to some degree. Yeah. Now, I'll just say this, in our world, e-commerce is not immune to this because obviously manufacturing is in China. A lot of our clients are seeing manufacturing issues, which cause, supply chain. Obviously consumer anxiety is causing people to not buy as much. So there are still, no one's immune, but all that to say is the tactics and the ability people need. I believe what the businesses that are struggling need are visionary thinkers that understand how the things work, but also can create a certain path for them. And I think that as agencies, who better to do that for that world than an agency?
So you're saying that out of this, a lot of products or services that were offline will somehow go online or be drawn to more of an e-commerce or some type of different types of sales.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case for all, but there's, I believe, like if you sell something in person, and I would even say for most businesses, they should consider this whether or not they already do that. But like if you're struggling because you have low traffic, or let's say we have a lot of musician friends who are touring all day long, and now they may not be, but they have audiences that they can connect with. They just may not have the ability and knowledge to do that and to create a business around
to market that, to monetize it, et cetera. And that's an opportunity.
Like if Broadway started doing streaming, live streaming, would people show up?
I'd pay $100 to see Hamilton live versus $500 in person.
Yeah, for sure. And now, even live sports. I've got a friend in Silicon Valley that has a company that they do the cameras. They haven't been mass adopted, but the Warriors have used them a bunch of games. But the players actually wear the cameras.
Oh wow!
And so you can get into the app and actually like watch the game from the perspective of the players in like different areas. Yeah. So anyway, there's like all these innovations that again, I think ultimately we shouldn't live isolated beings that never connect with humanity. Sure. And veg on technology. That is not at all, I think, what I'm saying or what would be good for society. But adapting is sort of outside of that a little bit.
I think virtual reality, there's going to be a huge boom in virtual reality through this. And you touched on a point that's one of my soapboxes is that yes, we don't want to. We can look at this and say this is going to further isolate us. We're going to live in our homes and we're going to be self-centered in cocoons, right? And yet, what this is showing us, if we have eyes to see, is that we are more connected than we ever thought we were, right? Like
it's ironic, but yes.
Yeah.
Like we talk about how disconnected we are, but now we're seeing, oh my gosh, we are in a week. The world can change because human beings are so connected on such a cellular level that we can't even get away from each other. Yeah. And so the answer, I don't think, is, all right, let's isolate. Obviously, we all have to take precautions and we all have to do, social distancing, as they're calling it, for a time period. Go ahead.
I'm just going to back up a little bit from you so I can get my social distance. You're a little too close to me right now. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about that. Like if you think about 60 years ago, our world, we do live in a world economy where all of our supply chain now is dependent upon China and other countries, and there's so much like, they're talking about now, like, make sure that your products, when they come from China, they're more than 5 days old, being shipped because there could have the coronavirus on it, and all this stuff. And so, but we are so connected nowadays, and it's not just communication, right? We are definitely connected in communication. I mean, we know immediately the second something happens, the whole world knows, right? Tom Hanks has coronavirus. The whole world knows within hours, right? That wasn't possible. Minutes. That wasn't possible 100 years. So some of the information is driving everything. And so is it the actual virus, or is it the information that is actually traveling faster? And how is that affecting us as humans, the economy, supply chains? We're just so interconnected. You almost feel like you're part of a bigger chasm, right? You're part of a bigger chasm now, where you used to be a lot more isolated and on your own. My dad grew up in a place where their family grew their own vegetables in their garden. They didn't go to the store and buy vegetables.
Right.
They just grew them in the summer and canned them up for the winter, and they ate them through the winter from canned vegetables. And so we just live in such a different environment now. But you only recognize it when something like this happens, just how deeply entwined we are with everything. And so what that does for me personally is it's harder, because I try to have control of my business. We talked about this. We try to be proactive and not reactive in our businesses. We try not to drive our business out of fear, right? But the reality is that when stuff like this happens, you realize how much out of control we all kind of are in our own businesses, that we do have to be reactive, and we have to understand, we have to go through it with reason, right? We have to be reasonable when we go through stuff like this. And sometimes it's hard to be reasonable unless you've gone through stuff like this a few times. And so there's all of this going, that we just constantly think about. But for sure, I mean, as far as proactiveness, what I've done is I've kind of mentally took a snapshot of my business for the next year. So I've taken from now until the next year and go, okay, what are for our current clients, what are the projects or the time frames that we see certain revenue, certain projects that come up year after year, and what would happen if those things were cut? What would that look like for our current business? Let's just take all new business off the table. Let's just say we don't get new business for the next 6 months, and we're just solely relying on current businesses, current contracts, and playing out some scenarios, and not playing it out of fear. And that's the challenge, right? If you look at this stuff and you play these scenarios out, what ifs, it can feel very fearful.
Yeah. Go back a few episodes, and we did an episode about not being controlled by fear in your business.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I think there's a level that you have to have some clarity, because in business, you have to make sometimes quick decisions, right? And I think some of the challenges, as we know as agencies, is that let's say that you don't have the business you thought you did, and you have a staff. Do you need to cut your staff, right? And that's one thing I think we've talked about in the past, is that your staff has to be the right size for your business at the right time within an agency. It's a challenge with any company, right? And you don't want to work out of fear, but you also have to be ready to know, how am I going to, and this sounds weird, but like if you have to let a few people go or let some of your staff go, can you still provide the amount of resources, the quality of work to your current customers? Like, do you start losing expertise now that will hurt your business and things of that nature? So for me personally, that's kind of what I do. I kind of live in the future a lot. And again, it's always kind of what ifs. I don't know how healthy that is sometimes. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think you have to balance that, because I think that the thing I appreciate about you, Brad, and being around your business some, is that your word is clarity. And I love that, because clarity many times is the thing that's lacking the most, I think, in businesses, right? Is like, you don't know. I have a tendency to shoot from the hip, right? And so that can be a really good thing, right? I can be like, yes, let's get it done. Let's minimum viable product. Let's get it out the door and go. And that's really, that can be really helpful. But it can also be, it can also not be helpful. And so I think it's a balance of fighting for clarity and always seeking clarity. is a beautiful thing. And I think that's where it's so valuable in this situation is I think we can have clarity. Even though we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow here, there are some things that we can rise above and be like, the helicopter 2,000 feet up and look down and say, oh, this is what's going on. And like Ken, I think that's beautiful to say, you know what? We're an e-commerce business and there's all these retail stores that are going to be hurting that really need some help with e-commerce. Like, how do I step up, not give things away and hurt my business, but actually extend an olive branch, help them, maybe come in at a reduced rate and build a lifelong or, a long-term customer around this situation. And you say it's such a fine line from being opportunistic and benefiting from a terrible thing, but at the same time, just being a good human and realizing that we're all connected. It goes back to this idea of there's two schools of thought. I'm young. I don't care. I'm not going to be fearful of coronavirus because even if I get it, I'm going to shake it off. So everybody is overblowing this. The other that I think is a very selfish way of looking at it. The reality is, like you said, I could get it and not be affected, but I might give it to someone who could die from it. So that's what I need to be concerned about. That's the posture I need to take. How do I translate that into my business and say, how can I make this world a better place with my business toward other business owners that are suffering? And so another example that I was thinking about was, all of these schools, all of these events that are going online, and they're now being forced into having to do classes online, right? That's happening. Mm-hmm. I know my kids' school's doing it. Colleges are doing it. They're shutting down. Now they're being forced to use this innovation in tech. That's another example of how can we step up and say, after this, are you going to turn that off and not do that anymore? I'd be willing to bet what they're going to start doing is making it optional for high schoolers, for college to say, hey, if you want to dial in for class at least, twice a week, you can do that. Who's going to step up and help them integrate that?
Right now, you have to figure out how you make that work. And so then once the limitation is not necessarily as there or as big, the question is as well, now we have that option. We didn't think we could. We were forced to do that. And turns out we were able to do that. And that's how we grow and get better. And yeah, absolutely.
I think it's interesting because some of the best companies and some of the best leaders are really used to, they go into it knowing that there's going to be these adversities and there's going to be these times where they're going to need to pivot.
I think of Elon Musk.
They almost thrive on it. And I personally don't thrive on stuff like this. And maybe it's just who I am as a person, but there are people who actually thrive on it and actually go into the game knowing this is part of the game, right? And it's just part of what they're going to deal with. And so, I don't know if that comes out of maturity or just
sometimes
longevity, or maybe I don't know.
Again, I think the word of balance is really important no matter what, because you take just that quality and that can be really reckless and pretty ineffective too. Sometimes you run into a lot of people who pride themselves on that quality, and I don't necessarily think that's good, and rarely do I see that actually work out in business. But the people that have balance, where they understand, maybe it's fine to thrive through it. You enjoying adversity might be a little weird, but thriving through it, but being able to anticipate it is important. But also having the ability and the self-control, which I think is key to plan to your point, and to calculate and to not just be, excited about the roller coaster ride. Yeah. That is an interesting, that's a leader that and I would say, I don't know Elon Musk. I actually just watched one of his documentaries on this weekend. But I think it's interesting. You may think that he's a roller coaster. He may be, but he seems to have that balance to some degree. And you see the companies and some of the things he's done, and it's like he's done some of the things that people said are impossible. Right? He owns a rocket company. that is making trips to space, right? Who has that? He
while running a disruptive electric car company.
while disrupting the automotive industry, doing things.
Don't forget about his tunnels.
Yeah, the tunnel, underground tunnel.
But the interesting thing is, he doesn't care about money. I mean, as far as I can tell, and that's what people would say about him. He cares about the purpose, the reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money he made off of selling PayPal, and he put basically, I think, all of that into the next thing, and lived in on a couch. Who would do that? Like, most people would retire. So the only people that would do that are driven by a different thing. And again, I think that those type of leaders, like, you can tell, calculate, and also
there's people who want to build things, and as soon as they get it built, they want to destroy it and start over again
and make it better.
I'm not always one of those people. I want to build things and protect it. Right. Mm-hmm. And
it's like,
maybe
look at my castle.
Yeah. Well, and it's not,
yeah,
honestly, it's not even for self-gratification.
Right.
It's really more of this idea that what I'm building is affecting other people. There's employees that are involved. These employees have families, and you just feel a kind of a weight on your shoulders. And I think for me, what I like to do in this time is to say, listen, it's okay if I build stuff and things kind of fall. It's okay that I have to rethink the wheel again and kind of build something and then take it down a little bit and rebuild again, because it's only going to be better, right? And so part of this is just a mindset change. That is another thing that I'm learning. I went through the 2008, 2009. I've gained some scars from that, as well as some great tips in my back pocket that I pull out every so often. But now maybe this is another time that I can just learn and grow from this and change some of my mindset. Or what it does is it brings up a mirror in front of me, and I look at that mirror now and go, I don't know if I like that person, the way that person thinks about life. Mm-hmm. And so what it does now for me is it's helping me to rethink. And it's one thing that I like about this time, which is weird to say that you like this time at all, but I'm not in it alone, and that's the beauty of it. If this was a struggle that I was dealing with my business, and yet every other person in the world was thriving, and it was just an issue with me, I would feel alone. But because I know that that we're not struggling as like other companies are struggling,
yes,
and we're all in this together. Nobody has it figured out. I do feel a connection to it that helps me to kind of go, okay, we're all in this together. It empowers me, to be honest with you, a bit.
It's almost like the universe has to make adjustments, because, maybe we are having been feeling a little bit isolated and self-centered and disconnected. And it's time like these, because I remember it in 9/11. I remember it in other episodes where you're like, oh, for a short time there, we were all connected and we realized it. It was in our face, and we had to be considerate of other people. I mean, I think those adjustments are, I think there's something bigger behind that personally, but there's also something that's very needed. And I think it's something that we need as business people, as agency owners.
They're absolutely necessary to the evolution of what we do.
Right.
And what I would love to know is, I know we're sort of coming up on time, but anyone who's listening, like, if you're struggling with something, or you see a different perspective, or you see something working, or you're just fearful or in isolation, again, we're all connected, and I think we're trying to create a community to do that. And I'd love to hear some of those perspectives. And so if those exist, email us.
Go to the Facebook group.
Go to the Facebook group. There's a whole bunch of ways you can connect. I think we have our contact information inside the show notes.
Hit us up on social media.
Yeah. But just let us know. I would love to see how other people are dealing with this and thinking about this, just in these early stages. I think that's key.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's a good segue. So keep safe. Keep your hands clean. Do the Corona bump. Do you guys do elbow, fists, or feet? What's your preference?
Boy,
I'm not doing feet.
Oh boy, Nashville is such a friendly town. It's almost hard not to shake hands.
Yeah, we're just glad no one's kissing us anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Well, not so lucky for the Italians. It's pretty sad, actually.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
See ya.
Till next time.